Hiya folks, Gord Pyzer here, and I want to share an ice fishing lake trout tip, a little tactic that, to be totally honest, I didn't want to talk about, but Donna McLeod and Sandy Siren at Northeastern Ontario Tourism, they said, Gord, you got to spill the beans on this tactic. So I've opened the can and I'm going to spill the beans. Going to tell you about a lake trout technique that I virtually guarantee you've never tried before. And this is something that comes into its own right now at the end of January, and it's often our dominant technique in the month of February and March. Now, talking about lake trout, what a lot of folks don't realize is that the province of Ontario, we've got 1/4 of all the lake trout lakes found on Earth. 1/4 of the lake trout lakes are found right here in Ontario. And believe it or not, half of those waters are located in northeastern Ontario. Now, two real key concentrations. One concentration immediately north of the Blind River area and just to the west of Sudbury. The second cluster is in the Lady Evelyn Smoothwater Lake Temagami region. In those two clusters, there's almost half of 1/4 of all the lake trout lakes found on Earth. So all you folks that are fishing and visit that area, you got so many options at your disposal. And if you're ice fishing for lake trout right now and in the months to come, February, March, here's the technique you have to try. It's called, what I like to call, is bottoms up. And what I mean by bottoms up, most people don't realize that fish are cold water blooded animals. And what that means, the significance of that is, unlike humans, fish can't put a sweater on when they're cold or take the sweater off when they're warm. What they have to do is swim down to water temperatures that are at their peak or optimal. Now, certain fish like largemouth bass are a warm water species, and largemouth love 70, 80 degree water. Lake trout, on the other hand, are a cold water loving species. And lake trout, their optimal temperature range is between 8 degrees Celsius and 12 degrees Celsius, or about 48 to 52 degrees. You find 48 to 52 degrees or 8 to 12 Celsius, and you've found the vast majority of lake trout in the lake. Now, here's the important thing about that cold water loving lake trout is, while walleyes and largemouth bass and northern pike and perch, they all tend to slow down in the winter. Because lake trout love that cold water, they actually become more active and more aggressive. The problem, though, most folks know that lake trout love cold water, and when they fish for them in the summertime, they know that's down on the bottom. They know that cold water's down on the bottom, and they know it's out deep, and they automatically assume in the wintertime, trout are doing the very same thing. Often in the month of January, you will find them deep, and you will find them close to the bottom. Come February, they behave very, very differently often, and the same in March. Now, when I talk about bottoms down, here's what's happening. The trout are using the bottom of the ice surface. So if the ice is 2 or 3 feet deep, they're actually using the bottom of the ice as though it's the bottom of the lake. They behave identically, even when they're up high, just like they would when they're down deep. So they use the bottom of the ice surface, and they come along and they use it for two reasons. Number one, they hide. It kind of conceals them. So if there's a school of ciscos or a school of smelt or a school of whitefish, and they happen to look up, they're almost blinded by the light, and the lake trout are coming through. They're coming through just like great white sharks, and they're coming through with their pectoral fins displayed. And the cool thing about this pattern that I'm going to tell you about is the biggest fish in the lake tend to do it. So the biggest lake trout in the lake are behaving this way. They're coming through like great white sharks, and they're looking for schools of ciscos, schools of smelt, or schools of whitefish. And when they see them, they're coming through at the top just under the ice surface. They'll go down. It might be a pack of 4, 5, 6 lake trout, and they push the bait up. and they actually corral it. They run it in to the bottom of the ice, under the ice surface. It's an impenetrable barrier, and they confuse that school of prey, and they just come in and devour them. That's the key. When you're fishing, and you put your sonar unit, and this is the giveaway, when you put your sonar unit in on your favorite point, your favorite bar, or your favorite lake trout shoal, and you turn the sonar on, and you might fish for 15, 20 minutes, and you're down close to the bottom in your traditional areas, and you see nothing, that's the dead giveaway. The trout are up high. They're coming right through under the surface, and they're using the underside of the ice just as though it's the bottom of the lake. So when you see nothing on your sonar, it's a dead giveaway this pattern is starting to unfold. And like I say, the month of February and March are when it comes into its own. What we do is just open the bails on our reels, drop them down 10, 15, maybe 20 feet. We'll jig a few times, reel it up, jig a few times, and we always bring our baits, whether it's a tube jig, a Williams spoon, a Kamuki Smartfish, any of the top lake trout baits. Once we drop them down, we'll bring them back up. We're only fishing the top 15, 20 feet, and we always make sure we bring our lures right up into the holes and out of the water. Many times, almost the second it starts to come into the hole, or just about to come into the hole, that's when the trout hits. We've had days when we've caught 7, 8, 9 trout in an hour, and every one of those fish hit within 4 or 5 feet of the underside of the ice, even when we're over 80, 90, 100 feet of water. Now, the other thing is, if you drill 2 or 3 holes, or you've got a large opening and you're maybe in a dark ice hut, oftentimes, and this is what we'll do, we're looking down, we actually sight feed them or sight fish them. We drop our baits down, we'll jig, we can see our bait, and then all of a sudden, here comes one of those great white sharks, pectoral fins displayed, comes right in our baits. We start to take it away, boom. And as I say, the biggest fish that you're going to catch this winter, the biggest lake trout this winter, you give this a try the next time you go lake trout fishing in Northeast Ontario, where there's almost half of 1/4 of all the lake trout lakes on earth. You're going to have a new favorite lake trout pattern for February and March.